understand that this has to be something which a person can see.
Yeah.
It's logical that it should be that way.
Just before we get to what we're going to do today, I wanted to just mention, Rabbi Gimple just told me that I'm just repeating for the video. In yesterday's Gemara, where Tosfos declared that it's a dispute between the Babli and the Yerushalmi about whether the Mezuzah should be a third regardless of the height, or the Mezuzah should be at the shoulder regardless of the height. Our Gemara seems to imply it should be at the top third, irrespective of how tall it is, and the Tosfos seems to imply that the Yerushalmi disagrees with that and says that it's at the shoulder height. And then we saw how that machlokes, that dispute, plays out between the Shulchan Aruch and the Shach, and how I guess it's divided in custom all the way even into Chabad custom. And we offered one possible explanation in how to reconcile the two, which is obviously not according to Tosfos and the Shach, because Tosfos is clearly stating it's a dispute. He says clearly, that the Yerushalmi disputes our Gemara, and the Shach also clearly seems to imply that it's a dispute. But the others try to reconcile it. We gave one reconciliation with the 20 Amos, and Rabbi Gimple said that the Aruch HaShulchan says it's not a dispute. It seems obvious to him, for some reason, that it's supposed to be the lower of the two. Whichever one's lower. If the top third is lower, put it there. If the shoulder is lower, put it there.
The point he's making,
even though, by the way,
the Gemara should have, I agree, his point is the Gemara should have made an observation.
Yeah, but the truth is,
what if they have a high ceiling? What you do?
Yeah, but the truth is that this Pashas Gemara reads the other way, because the Pashas Gemara is, the simple reading of the Gemara is Shmuel says a third. They have a Tana which says the higher is the better, and then Shmuel's giving you a cap, no lower. But according to the Aruch HaShulchan, it's not a cap, no lower. It's no lower unless you have a high door and your shoulder's lower. So the simple reading does not follow the Aruch HaShulchan, because the Gemara seems to imply that a third is actually is a cap at the lowest. When Shmuel said a third, he was following the view of Rabbi Yossi, which said the higher the better, but no lower than a third.
The third is higher than the shoulder.
Depending on how tall your mezuzah is.
Standard.
Depends how big your door is, right? Mezuzah means a doorpost. It means it depends on how tall your door is, right? So, but I'm just saying that Aruch HaShulchan is saying for some reason that it's the pashtus, the lower of the two, when the Gemara seems to imply that actually the third is the cap to how low you can go. You can't go lower.
Yeah, but other argument he brings is compared to tefillin.
And tefillin goes to the shoulder.
Shoulder.
Right. Yeah. But which is interesting, because it actually compares it to the shoulder, to the tefillin of the head.
Yeah, but some do.
Not the shoulder, which is the highest possible. Not to the. I mentioned that there are some people that compare it to the arm tefillin, and some compare it to the head tefillin. Rashi Dafka compares it to the head tefillin. But anyway,
you use a head tefillin, it's right to the person. That would be the argument. It's still at a person's level.
Yeah, but you can't. The person is not taller than his head, so you can't get any higher.
It's one of the comparisons between tefillin and mezuzah. It's something you can deal with.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
it's too high.
The point is we can see that there's all this kind of there's all this wiggle room in how to play with all this.
And the Gemara should have made it some remark one way or the other.
But it's clear from the Tosfos that it's a dispute, and I guess and from Shach it's a dispute, and in the custom it is a dispute. I guess unless people follow the Aruch HaShulchan, but for some reason, even though the Aruch HaShulchan is a very extensive halachic work, for some reason it didn't get as much
recognition,
as much
weight.
I shouldn't say weight, because anybody who's in the world of halachic scholarship is going to heavily take into consideration what the Aruch HaShulchan says. But in terms of absolute, this is what he says, this is what we follow, he didn't get that. I don't know. Like the Mishnah Brura, for a vast number of Jews, the Mishnah Brura writes, this is the halacha. For the Alter Rebbe, for vast numbers of Jews, this is what he wrote, this is what we do. For the Aruch HaShulchan, it's more like, okay, what did he say? We'll take it into consideration, as opposed to this is what he said, this is what we do, even though the Aruch HaShulchan in a way is much more extensive than the Mishnah Brura. The Mishnah Brura, in a sense, is a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. The Mishnah Brura, first of all, wasn't written by one person. It was written by the Chafetz Chaim, commissioned his son-in-laws to write it with him. And the point of it was, initially, was an aid to learning Shulchan Aruch. When you're learning Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, and there's multiple opinions, the Mishnah Brura kind of summarizes them for you and tells you how to behave. It's not an independent work. Whereas the Aruch HaShulchan is independent work, in a way similar to the Alter Rebbe. It goes through all the different opinions, gives you all the backgrounds. So in a way it's much more extensive even than the Mishnah Brura. For some reason, by Hashgacha Pratis, obviously by divine providence, it didn't become the de facto default halacha as other works did. And I can't tell you why. I don't know what the historical context is to know that, but just not.
Part of the reason is that the Chafetz Chaim had a yeshiva, and also he was...
Aruch HaShulchan had a community.
Yeah, but yeshiva, as you have more Talmud...
Didn't have people disseminate his work.
Yeah, that's how it works. You see that in life, they're great scholars sometimes, but the ones at yeshivas have more impact because they have...
Alter Rebbe didn't technically have a yeshiva, but had chadarim. I guess he had Alter Rebbe had Talmudim around him, even though it wasn't the yeshiva.
But was like yeshiva,
not really. The first
was a community, but he didn't have Talmudim
right.
at
yeah, I guess so. I
Other
guess.
thing also, the Chavetz Chaim was recognized as like a major player in Aguda. Well, Shulchan was talking about that.
Right, the Chavetz Chaim was a spiritual figurehead in Judaism in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
At any rate.
These are the kind of factors.
I speculate, but it's just reality. Okay, so now we're going to get to the Gemara is going to get to first the halacha, and then that halacha is going to take us to the reasons, if you will. What are the messages of the mezuzah? What the chinuch calls the misharsheh ha-mitzvah. The chinuch is who's one of the classic counters or numerators of the 613 mitzvahs. And with every mitzvah, he gives a synopsis of what the mitzvah is, and then he says misharsheh ha-mitzvah. Sharsha means like from the sources. In other words, what are the spiritual messages of the mitzvah? So first we have halacha in today's Gemara, and then we have the spiritual messages of the mezuzah. And then when we get to that, we'll kind of elaborate a little bit, see some of the commentaries on each of these two messages, and then we'll see, if we have time, how this, in a way, became the foundation for the Rebbe's mezuzah campaign. You know, the fact that the Rebbe chose mezuzah as the campaign and not some other mitzvah is rooted in the spiritual messages of the mezuzah that we're going to learn about today. So, third line from the top of the page, Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, 33b. The third line, it's the fourth word. So right in the middle of the third line, there's a big aleph, and that's where we are. So the Gemara says, mitzvah, it's a mitzvah lahanicha, to put the mezuzah, betefach, within a handbreadth, hasamach l'shashabim, which is closest to the public domain. So you can have a very, very wide doorpost. It can be as wide as 6 tvachim, I don't know, however wide your door is, especially since the halacha is that mezuzah goes in the doorposts on the gates of your cities as well, not just the gates of your home. So if you have a walled city, take you to Shalayim, ever walk through the old city, the wall doorposts are very, very wide. Could be 1.5 feet wide at one doorpost. So where in that doorpost should you put the mezuzah, right? We discussed which side it should be on. We discussed how high it should be. Now, how deep should it be within the doorpost? So the Gemara says it should be put within a tefach of the entrance. So it says here, mitzvah. I mentioned yesterday that when the word mitzvah is used in halacha context, doesn't always mean necessarily it's an obligation. If you don't do so, it's invalid. I did not look up the halacha before. Maybe I should have done that, but I didn't. But it would seem to me that no, let's not say anything. Maybe tomorrow we'll look it up and we'll say exactly. Meaning, if I don't put it within the tefach, is it invalid? I don't think it is, but we'll look it up. God willing, I'll have the answer for that tomorrow. But at any rate, it's certainly best to have the mezuzah within a handbreadth of the public domain, meaning closest to the public domain. When you're walking in, it should be closest to you. It says the Gemara, my time. What's the reason? Why should it be closest to public domain? Why not put it further in, put it deeper in? What's the difference? So here we have, in the two answers here, we have the spiritual messages of the mezuzah. Number one, Rabban Amri, the sages said, the majority of people sitting in the study hall discussing this, said, Kedei sheyufka b'mezuzah miyad, so that the person meets the mezuzah immediately. So he's walking to his home, he should meet his mezuzah right away. If it's 3 handbreadths in, there's 3 handbreadths of walking where he hasn't entered into his mezuzah yet. So that's one reason. You should meet your mezuzah the first thing when you come into your home, and therefore it should be closest to the entrance. So that's what the majority of sages said. Rav Chanina Masura Amar, Rav Chanina from Surah, from Syria, Omer said, Ki hechi dinitrai, dinitarte, not sure pronounce the word. Dinitatre. So that the person should be protected. That is to say, the closer the mezuzah is to the entrance, the more of your home is protected by the mezuzah. So in these two things, that's concluding more than I'll tell you what we have. Okay, so Rav Chanina said, Bo re'eh, come and see, come and observe. Shalaik midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, midas basav adam. That Hashem's measure or attribute or behavior is unlike the measure, behavior of attribute of man. How so? Midas basav adam, when you're talking about human beings, Melech yeshiv b'fnim, the king sits deep in the chamber of his home. V'am mesham b'sim b'chutz, and the various different people he hires protect him from the outside. So the king sits in the innermost chamber of his palace, and as you go from the center where the king is sitting, from his chamber, as you go farther out toward the public, the lower standing the people who are standing there get. So in other words, the higher of a standing you get, the closer you are to the king, and even in protecting him. Till finally you get to the end, you just have a simple centurion standing at the end there, or a simple guard. But Midas HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the measure of God, the attribute of Hashem, is not like that. It's the other way around. Avadav, his servants, us, the Jewish people, Yoshim B'fnim, sit inside, we sit comfortably in our homes. Vahu, and God, Mishama B'chutz, protects us on the outside, in the Mezuzah. So we sit in the inside of our home, and Hashem protects us, as opposed to Hashem, the king, protects us, protects his servants, as opposed to human beings, where the king sits in his home comfortably, and his servants take the risk of protecting him outside. So Shenemar, the verse reads, Hashem Tzilcha, Hashem Shemrecha, God guards you. Hashem Tzilcha, Hashem is your shade, Hashem is your protector. Al Yad Yaminecha, on your right hand, referring to the Mezuzah, as Rashi tells us, which is posted on the right side. So we sit inside comfortably, Hashem protects us from the outside. And with Hashem, with a human king, it's the reverse. A king sits on the inside and the servants guard him on the outside. Yeah, this is the Gemara, it's quite simple. So here you have two reasons for why the Mezuzah has to be put al Pesach Beise on the al Tefach HaSamuch l'Rosh Hashanah on the closest to the public domain. Two reasons. One, so that I should bump into the Mezuzah quick first, and the other, that Hashem should protect more of my home. So with all mitzvahs, generally speaking, in the language of Kabbalah, you have two elements: isarusa de latata, an awakening from below, and isarusa de la'ela, an awakening from above. Every mitzvah has the element of man connecting to Hashem, the Jew connecting to Hashem through the act of the mitzvah. And then the other element is, usually it's in response, Isarusa de Leila, Hashem grants blessing, or Hashem comes to be in the presence of this person through the mitzvah. So one is from below to above, I dedicate myself to Hashem through this act. And the other is Hashem connects to me from above to below through that act. So it's a two-way correlation. Isarusa de Leila, Isarusa de Latata. Awakening from below and awakening from above. And generally the system is that the way in which there's the Sarusa de Le'ela, the awakening from above, Hashem's engagement with the person from above to below, is measure to the person's engagement from above to below, from below to above. So the way in which a person behaves or engages in that mitzvah, to that degree, Hashem responds in kind. Midah. Not just in the terms of like reward and punishment, but just in the relationship element. That the measure of, so if each, no, it's like this: every mitzvah has this truth. The person engages in the mitzvah, and Hashem responds with a relationship and connecting to the person. But every mitzvah has its own flavor, and therefore the flavor of your investment is one type, and the flavor of Hashem's reaction is in that type.
Both the amount and also the manner.
The amount, the manner,
to get an idea what
the quantity, the quality, the type, all of it is measured for measure. It's just the le'ela, it's just the tata. And here, the Mezuzah also, in these two reasons, you see both of them. One is man's engagement from below to above, that I should bump into the Mezuzah as soon as I can. I should invest more of myself in the Mezuzah. The fact that it should be closest to Rosh Hashanah is not for Hashem's protection, but that, as he says it here, I should bump into my Mezuzah first, meaning to say, I should be more dedicated to the mitzvah, so that I meet it first when I walk into my home. And the second element is, Hashem protects me more of my home. That the closer it is to the public, the more of my home is in Hashem's protection. Below to above to below. So now let's analyze this a little bit more. We'll start first with the second element. Here, take this. Yeah. The second element, which is Hashem's protection of our mezuzah. So here we have the Marsha, classic commentary. I think I mentioned this once before when we were talking about mezuzah. I mentioned that the mezuzah guards the person even when he's not at home. And I said then that I heard it from the Rabbi. I wasn't sure what the source was, but it seemed to me that there was an earlier source. And there is an earlier source. It's the Marsha. And it's right here in this Gemara. So we'll learn that, and we'll see more of the Hashem's protection from above to below. So it's in the left-hand column, and it's the first full paragraph. It starts off with Ches Aleph, so it's the text is a little bit smaller. So the reason why it's a little bit smaller and what that Ches Aleph stands for is because the Marsha is divided into two parts. Excuse me. So the two parts of the Marsha are divided into halachic analysis and midrashic analysis. So the midrashic analysis always begins with the words Ches Aleph, which stands for Chedushi Agadis, which is Agadic midrashic analysis, and the text is put in smaller so the person can distinguish it. If a person wanted to scan through the Marsha to find just the medrash analysis, you find the smaller text. So this is a midrashic thing. It's not a halachic thing. When they're talking about Hashem's protection, there's no halachic obligation associated with God's protection, but there's a homiletic droshic thing. So he says like this. So he says Chedushi Agadis, Daf Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis, page 33b, which is what we're learning. So first he quotes our Gemara, Midas Basav Adam, Chulu, the measure of man, etc., is that the king sits on the inside while servants protect him on the outside. Whereas for Hashem, it's the other way around. God protects us on the outside while we sit comfortably in our home. That's what the Gemara said. Shenemar, as the verse reads, and the quote of the verse says, Hashem Shemrecha, God protects you, God's your shield from your right side, and therefore he says, Kipirish Rashi, like Rashi explained, the second line, Yad Yaminecha, the verse says that Hashem protects you through his right hand, Mezuzah, that the Mezuzah is Miyamin Biyah, the right side of walking in, so Hashem protects you from your right hand, meaning the right side where the Mezuzah is posted, and that's what we learn from Rashi. Now, V'Amar. Now, the verse actually reads, the verse itself, even though the Gemara does not quote that part of the verse, but the verse itself reads, I think it's the next verse. Yeah, so the verse continues reading, etc. That the sun of the day should not bother you, nor should the moon bother you. In other words, the sun and the moon, which have their effect on this world, should be for a blessing and not for negative. It should be warmth of the sun, not droughts of the sun. That's the simple meaning of the verse. So explain the Marsha. And this verse, that verse about the sun and the moon not being of damaging to us, comes right on the heels of the verse which says Hashem protects us on the right side, which is a reference to the Mezuzah Gemara just said. Yeah, are you following me? So the Marsha says like this: for all the negative happenings or events, which happen in this world, Nosnu are granted biyad mazalos hashemayim, come through the constellations in the heavens. So I don't think we learned this here, but the Gemara elsewhere explains that there are 7 planets that Hashem chooses that they should be intermediaries through which the flow of divine energy comes to this world. And the Gemara explains how each one has a different turn, when they're dominant, all kinds of things. But the point is that there are 7 celestial bodies through which Hashem disseminates or chooses to invest his energy into our world. She'ikram, the primary of these celestial bodies are the 7, which are Chama v'Lavana, the sun and the moon, v'Chayim, and their stars, which are the 7 planets, 7 of the 9 planets. I don't remember what all of them are.
So it's in science, it's connected to the actual planets?
Sorry?
In science,
I don't know how it matches up with science.
Or these are different celestial.
I don't know how it matches up in science. It's kind of it's a discussion, and I think the article has a nice little article on it when a Gemara talks about it in Shabbos. If I'm not mistaken, it's in Shabbos. And
well, obviously the sun.
It's more. I would say it's more spiritual. The sun and the moon in science works because we have sun brings us ton, and the moon brings the tide.
Where's the reference to Mars?
There's a reference to Mars, to Venus, to
right?
But I can't say how it matches up in science. It's more of a spiritual thing. I would stay safe and say it's a spiritual thing, and that's what it seems to me from the sources. Although there are those who try to match it up with the science. I'm not a scientist enough to be able to vouch for it, so I don't know.
The science at least would agree that the names of the planets, but the influence, of course, this is Kabbalah.
Yeah, even though it's in the Gemara, it's not Kabbalah in that sense, but it's a spiritual element.
Idea, yeah.
It's a spiritual element.
It's more Shabbos.
It's in the Gemara, but it's a spiritual element. Anyway.
Person born into a certain planet.
Yeah, here. Okay, so let's move forward. We're going to run out of time. Let's move forward. Now it says the Marsha V'Haim. Now these celestial bodies, these planets through which Hashem chooses to disseminate His energy, misnagdim l'umma yiselis. They stand in opposition to the Jewish people. Why? Because the Gemara says, "Ein mazal Yisrael." When the Gemara discusses the various different character traits, the divine energy that flows through the various different planets, the Gemara there says that these character traits, or whether they're negative or positive, have no effect on the Jewish people. And as the Gemara explains there, it's not that they have no effect, but that the Jew, through Torah and mitzvahs, and tshuva, can transcend it. So, if the planets represent fate, Hashem invests a certain energy, and the energy flows in a certain direction, and that's just the way it is. What are you going to do about it? You can't do anything about it. But the Jewish, the natural order, in other words, this is fate. This is the way things go. But a Jew has been granted through Torah and mitzvahs the ability to transcend fate, so therefore the systems of fate are in opposition to the Jew.
Or may not be, depending on whether.
The Jew is the only one that he has no full control over. Fate has no full control. Therefore, to the Jew, it's like to the systems of fate. The Jew is this thorn anomaly. This is the way the Marsha puts it. Al Kain Omar. Therefore, we're saying mitzvah mezuzah, that through mitzvah mezuzah, Hashem meshvei the sun and the moon, lo yakeka, won't hit you, won't bother you, even though you are a thorn in their system. Why? Because the previous verse, Hashem yishmarcha mikara, God protects you from all negativity, which the Gemara just said is a reference to mezuzah. So the first verse says Hashem protects you through mezuzah, and because of the protection of mezuzah, you don't get hit by the sun and the moon, which is the next verse. You don't get hit. You don't get bothered by fate. So in other words, the Marsha is telling us that mezuzah is a unique mitzvah through which we can transcend fate, and the protection that the Gemara is talking about, where Hashem protects us because of the mezuzah, is a kind of protection which transcends the natural order of fate, represented by by the planets.
Through those celestial bodies.
That's the representative of fate, and the mezuzah transcends that. Sheis oirim mehem, that through them it's awakened, love alecha, to bring upon you blessing and protection from Hashem through the mezuzah. Now the Gemara he says like this: and because we say over here, when you're inside your home, God stands on the outside and protects you. Right, which the Gemara said, right? The Hashem is unlike human kings, where Hashem is the king and He stands outside protecting the Jews in the inside. Tahainu, which this is Yad Yimenecha on the right hand side, which is the mezuzah. Yemin bi'asecha on the right side when you enter your door. Labayis when you come into your house. So Hashem Returner, perhaps you might think, b'tzeisecha, when you leave your home, lo yeshem recha, Hashem is not protecting you because the mezuzah is at your door. So Hashem is waiting at your door for you to come home to protect you. When I'm walking on the street. Okay, and Omar. Therefore, the verse says, Hashem yishmar tzeischa vayecha. The next verse says, so it's 3 verses in a row. The third verse says, God protect your coming and your going. Sheyishmar mitzvah mezuzah, that through the merit of the mitzvah mezuzah, God protect you tzeisecha in your traveling. That's even on the outside. Not so. In other words, when the Gemara says that Hashem protects you on the outside, it's not just that Hashem stands on the outside protecting you when you're sitting inside, but Hashem protects you on the outside when you're sitting inside and when you're outside. Just like He protects you when you come inside, when you're sitting in your home.
Well, it's also it's closest to the public.
That's correct. So it's closest to the public for 2 things. Number 1, to protect you when you're sitting inside. That more of your home is protected, and that's why you get it closest to the edge. And secondly, as the Marsha says, even when you're traveling out there, Hashem is protecting you.
It's closer to you.
That's correct. So here you have an incredible message in the above to below, Hashem's protection of the Jew. That this protection doesn't just extend to when we're sitting. Well, 2 things. First of all, the nature of the protection is now more elucidated by the Marsha. It's not just an ordinary protection, but the kind of protection where this is like a key or a vehicle through which the Jew can transcend fate. The fate represented by the celestial body, the natural order through which Hashem provides sustenance to this world, and comes to the mezuzah and says, you can transcend that. Number 1. And number 2, that this protection is not just when you're sitting in your home, but even when you're traveling out there. Which again lends weight to the idea, and again, we're going to get to the Rebbe's founding of the Mezuzah campaign. The Rebbe was very much pushed for this idea of in 74, pushed for the Mezuzah being protection for the Jew when he's coming and when he's going, when he's traveling, especially in connection with the Yom Kippur War. What year was the Yom Kippur War? 73. So 74. So around that time, and talking about having mezuzahs, and even when the soldier is out in the field, the mezuzah he has at home protects him. Sorry?
Yeah, year before.
73.
73 was, yeah,
73.
Yeah, but this campaign really came 1 year later.
So the Mezuzah campaign may have come a little later.
That's right.
But I think actually, no, maybe it came a little earlier.
But
It could be at the big. Oh, wait, no, 73, but the Rebbe's campaign was Lamadalad. Lamadalad, the beginning of Lamadalad is 73.
yes, depending on when it started.
The beginning, talking about Tishrei Lamadalad.
It's our Tishrei. Oh.
Yeah, the campaign started by the Yom Kippur War.
Oh, I think people are
I'm just thinking of the Hebrew date Lamadalad going with 74, but the first half
Right,
of
yeah,
Lamadalad
the
is
first
73
part,
still.
73, yeah.
So it's that same time. It was talking about protecting the soldiers when they're on the field. The Mezuzah protects them based on this idea that the Mezuzah protects the Jew when he's traveling, he's out there. Which further gets to the point when people were under distress or things were going on, they would suggest people to check their tefillin and mezuzahs very often, especially mezuzah, because mezuzah again is the vehicle for Hashem's protection, which transcends fate, as we're learning it here. And they would tell people to check the mezuzahs. Sometimes they would tell them to get a better standard of mezuzah. If you already have mezuzah, get a better one. Check the positioning, make sure it's on the right side. Right side, pun intended, both right on the right, and both right as in it to be the correct side, knowing which side is the right side. Yeah? And the height and all kinds of things like that, as we're learning all the different halachas that come around that. So this is with respect to above to below Hashem's protection of the Jew. Now the other thing, where we said the other reason why the mezuzah had to be closest to the public domain wasn't that, one reason was that Hashem protects most of the home, which we just analyzed, and the other is that the person should bump into the mezuzah first, and that we said is the below to above, a person's dedication to Hashem through the mitzvah, that the mitzvah should be the first thing he sees when he comes into his home. So now let's see the mitzvah's message from below to above and why it's such a central mitzvah. And again, lends to the idea of Hashem's mitzvah campaign. So you turn the page. Okay, which one comes first? Yeah. So this is from Torah. Torah is my Marim discourses from the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad. And these are not part of the Tanya. These are discourses that he delivered on a Shabbos or on a Yom Tif, and they were transcribed by either his brother, his son, or his grandson, or another person who is a scribe of the Alter Rebbe. At any rate, these are his discourses. Sorry? They were delivered mostly on Shabbos or Yom Tif for other times. So it's part of a set. Torah and Lekot Torah. Torah is Bereshis and Shemois and Megillas Esther, and Lekot Torah is Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim, and Shir Hashirim. Maybe I'm missing something else. Maybe I got that wrong, but it's just about that. Yeah, I think I got that right. At any rate, so this Maimer, this discourse is from Parshas Miketz. Parshas Miketz is in the middle of Hanukkah, so the discourse is about Hanukkah. Now, why would he be talking about Mezuzah on Hanukkah? Anybody? Why are we talking about Mezuzah on Hanukkah?
No, because you have to.
That's right, because the Gemara tells us. Sorry,
you don't put it by the window. You
going to say something?
I just say protection. I don't know.
Yeah, because we say that the mezuzah is supposed to be the menorah. If you're putting it in your home, and you put it by the doorway, and you put the Gemara says you put the mezuzah on your menorah on your left side, the mezuzah on your right side, so that you're surrounded by mitzvahs. So very often when Chassidus would analyze what the spiritual message of the menorah is, the Chassidus will analyze what the spiritual message of mezuzah is and how they complement each other, and why one's in the right and why one's in the left. So in that context, he's discussing hidden mezuzah. So you go to the second line, you go to the right-hand column, the third paragraph, all the way at the bottom, go to the second line, second to last word, the Inyan HaMezuzah. You see that?
Which column? The right.
The right-hand column, last paragraph, second line, second to last word. There's a period and it says the Inyan Mezuzah.
Yeah.
The Inyan HaMezuzah, and the idea of the Mezuzah, Husha Kaisin, is where we write Parsha Shema. We write the chapter of Torah which describes the Shema, declaring Hashem's unity. And then we write V'hayim Shemaya, and we write the second Parsha V'hayim Shemaya, Shekosov Sham, in which it's written Echad describes Hashem's unity, and then it says V'ahavta, loving Hashem b'chol levavcha, with all your heart, b'chol nafshcha, with all your soul, b'chol medecha, with all your might. So P'chinas Halah, the Shema is a description of below to above. That's the words that are written in the mezuzah clearly describe a person's ascent from below to above, his dedication to Hashem. He's declaring Hashem's unity, declaring a love of Hashem, a dedication to serving Hashem, a dedication to learning Torah. That's what the mezuzah describes.
Also describes.
And then at the end, it talks about Hashem's blessings back.
Exactly.
Right? So here he's focusing on the below to above.
Yeah, with both ways.
Right? Because as he says it here, at least, as I mentioned in the beginning, every mitzvah has an element of below to above and above to below. But some mitzvahs, some are more dominant in their themes of other. And generally speaking, it's divided between mitzvahs and Torah. Even though both mitzvahs and Torah have both elements above to below and below to above. But generally speaking, it's divided in such a way. Because mitzvahs is my dedication to Hashem, and Torah is Hashem communicating to me. Or another way of putting it is prayer versus Torah. In prayer, I am talking to God, and in Torah study, God's talking to me. But there's both elements, because I'm talking to Hashem, Hashem is engaging back with me. And when I'm learning Torah, I'm engaging in that discussion. Right? So there's an element of both in everything. But to one degree, mitzvahs and Torah are from below to above, and Torah, mitzvahs and tefillah and prayer are from below to above. Right? I'm engaging in the mitzvah, and I talk to Hashem, and Torah is above to below. Hashem talks to me and communicates with me. So generally speaking, says the Alter Rebbe, that Chanukah, the menorah, represents Torah. Torah is light, and the menorah therefore is light. So that's from above to below, and the mezuzah is from below to above mitzvahs. Because that's the context, the text of the mezuzah describes our dedication to serving Hashem with love, and then Hashem responds with blessings. But the primary of the message there is our declaration of unity and our dedication of love of Hashem and serving Hashem with mitzvahs. So it's from below to above. So, and therefore he says like this: the Pesach Habayis, the mezuzah is therefore established on the doorpost of the home, lahalos habayis, to dedicate and to elevate our home, v'chol asher bo, and everything that's in it. Kol rechushay, all of his belongings are in his home. The kinyan, and everything he owns. The chol hatevis, and he's dedicating them and elevating them into all the words of the mezuzah. Lies betelim, that all of my belongings and everything I own should be secondary and surrendered and dedicated to la'avas Hashem, the love of Hashem, b'chol ma'otzcha, with all of my might, right? There's b'chol nafshcha with all your heart, b'chol nafshcha with all your soul, b'chol ma'otzcha with all your might. And the Gemara discusses, what does it mean, might? And the Gemara says, b'chol ma'otzcha, that b'chol ma'otzcha with all your might should mean with all of your money, with all of your belongings. So all of my belongings that are in my home or in my office are all dedicated to what? To the echad, to the oneness, to the love that's described in the mezuzah. And therefore the mezuzah is put at the door to say that everything in here is dedicated to the message written in the mezuzah. This is the below to above message. Therefore, and that's what the mezuzah is, spiritually speaking. Why the mezuzah is put on the right side? Because the right side is an embrace. That's what the verse says. The right side is metaphorical, allegorical to embrace. Like a person who hugs his friend. He brings him close to him. So too the mezuzah is a person's dedicating in love to Hashem, and therefore the reaction from Hashem is a love reaction. Right? We mentioned at the beginning that the awakening from above is in response to the type of awakening from below. So the awakening from the below here is I'm dedicating all of my belongings to you, Hashem, in this loving manner, in the v'ahavta, in the love that's described in the mezuzah. So the response is Yemini techabkeni, Hashem hugs me on the right side. So the mezuzah at the door is two things now we're learning. Number one, Hashem protection. That wherever I travel, as the mezuzah says, that as the Menachot told us, that through the mezuzah a person transcends fate. And that's what's at the door, to tell me that everything, my entire home, and when I travel, Hashem is protecting me beyond fate. And then from below to above, as Alter Rebbe says, it's on the right side, and it's at the door to say that everything in this house is dedicated to the message of that mezuzah. What does it read in the mezuzah? I love Hashem, Hashem's unity. So everything I own, and everything I have, and everything that I am, is dedicated to Hashem's oneness, and Hashem's love, and Hashem's unity. And therefore in response, it's the right side, it's Hashem's loving back to the Jew. And now, then he gets to the menorah, which we're not going to discuss now because it's not our topic. But then you go to the next page. And the next page, if you go turn to the page, the next page is a couple of pages later in the same book, which the Alter Rebbe has often has a beer on the first mimer. So sometimes you'll have a mimer, you have a discourse, and then the Alter Rebbe would deliver a further elaboration on that discourse. And the further elaboration says like this. So if you go to the left-hand column, top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the top of the page in the left-hand column, and you'll see there's a period there, and then it says mezuzah. See it? Mezuzah. The mezuzah who prinas ha-mitzvahs. Mezuzah, as I said before, generally speaking, corresponds to mitzvahs. Right? As I mentioned before, even though everything has the elements of both below to above and above to below, but generally speaking, mitzvahs are mitzvahs and prayer are below to above, because it's our dedication to Hashem, and Torah is above to below, because Hashem is communicating to us. So in the Mezuzah, as we described, it declares my dedication to wanting to serve Hashem with love and doing all of his mitzvahs. You listen to all of his mitzvahs, that's the dedication there. So Mezuzah represents, generally speaking, the mitzvahs. Mezuzah, because Mezuzah, as we just described, is a person's dedication from below to above. It's ascent. Halah means ascent, below to above. I'm dedicating everything in my home to the message of the Mezuzah, to the message of Hashem's unity and love of Hashem. Shabbai is Adam, at the home of man. Everything that's in it. Batal Hashem Echad is surrendered onto the unity of Hashem. Shekaisim Mezuzah, which is written in the Mezuzah, Echad, Hashem's unity, V'hafta, and love. And now he gives a little more detail to the three things. B'chol lavavcha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol medecha. B'chol lavavcha, because with all of your heart, I'm loved. Right? The Mezuzah says, love Hashem with all your heart. That's what it says there. So with all of your heart, he p'chinas tefillah is prayer. Tefillah is described in the Gemara as avodah shebelev, the service of the heart. I'm dedicating to Hashem. So that's again a below to above. I'm dedicating myself onto you in love through prayer. And with all of your soul, he p'chinas Torah is Torah. But we said before that Torah is from above to below. Hashem's communicating to us. But there is one element of Torah, just like I said before, everything has the element of both. So there's an element of Torah also from below to above. Namely, Lakasha machshava, to connect my thoughts, b'machshava, into the thoughts of Torah. V'dibura, my speech, v'dibura Torah, the talking of Torah. So even though generally speaking Torah is from above to below, Hashem's communicating to me, but of course there's an element that I have to engage in Torah. So b'chol nafshecha, that I am declaring that I love Hashem with all my soul. What is that? Says the Alter Rebbe. That's my dedication to think and speak the words of Torah. So b'chol lavavcha, with all your heart, is my dedication to communicate to Hashem how I'm feeling and what I want, and try to dedicate my love to Hashem. That's through prayer. B'chol nafshecha, with all my soul, is the element of Torah. But which element of Torah? The element of Torah below to above. I'm dedicating my thoughts and my speech to your thoughts and your speech, which is Torah. The verse says that God says He grants us to be able to speak His words in our mouth. And then finally, and with all of your might. And as I mentioned before, He is talking about money, our property. So he mezuzah should be beisai, and this is what mezuzah is at the edge of our home. In kol arachush b'soichar, to say that everything, all my property that's in this mezuzah, with all my money, with all my might, is dedicated onto this unity of Hashem's love and Hashem's service from below to above. So we didn't get a chance to see the Rebbe Sikha, but this is basically the idea, and why the Rebbe chose the mitzvah of mezuzah as such an essential mitzvah. In fact, based on all of this, the Mittel Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe, writes that mitzvahs mezuzah shkula connected kol mitzvahs, that the mitzvah mezuzah is correspondent to all of the mitzvahs. And because of this, because of how Hashem, the mezuzah provides protection from above to below, even when a person is outside of his home. And because mezuzah is such a central declaration that I'm saying that everything that I own and everything that I am is dedicated onto you, onto Hashem's love and Hashem's unity, it's because of how central this mitzvah is, both from above to below and from below to above. Reflected in the two reasons in the Gemara for why the mezuzah is at the edge of the home. One, that I should bump into it first, my dedication is complete. And number two, that Hashem's protection is at the edge of the door, Hashem's protection is complete. So in this above to below to above transaction, relationship, symbolized in the mezuzah, and how central and how big it is. That's one of the reasons, at least, why the mezuzah was the Rebbe's third campaign: Tefillin, Chanukah, and mezuzah. So, if you haven't yet, just halachically speaking, you have to check your mezuzahs twice every 7 years. And many have the custom, including in Chabad, to check it every Elul. And there's other times when one's wife is pregnant, there's such a thing. But generally speaking, if a person hasn't got the mezuzah checked in a while, you should get them checked, make sure that they're kosher. And if they're kosher, get them more muhudder, get them a little more beautiful. And likewise, to make sure they're positioned in the right place. As we can see how important all this is to both Hashem's protection and to our declaration of our dedication to Hashem in love and in unity. Have a wonderful day, buddy.